Most people think traffic stops only escalate when someone gets loud, rude, or aggressive. They think trouble starts when voices rise or tempers flare. But that's not how it actually happens. In reality, traffic stops escalate quietly, slowly, step by step, and most drivers never notice it until it's too late. Escalation doesn't begin with arguing. It begins with small, innocent moments. A question you answer without thinking, a movement you make without explaining, a decision you make because you're trying to be polite. I'm a lawyer, and I've watched countless simple traffic stops turn into tickets, searches, detentions, and arrests, not because the driver did something criminal, but because they didn't realize how escalation works. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how traffic stops escalate without you realizing it. The hidden steps, the quiet triggers, and the moments where the law shifts in ways most people never notice. This isn't about being rude. It's not about fighting the police. It's about understanding how control changes during a stop so you don't accidentally give it away. Once you see these steps, you'll never experience a traffic stop the same way again. Number 1. Escalation starts with casual questions. The very first escalation almost always sounds harmless. The officer walks up calmly and asks a question that feels like small talk. Do you know why I pulled you over? Where are you headed tonight? How's your day going? Most people answer automatically. They think they're just being polite. They think cooperating early will make the stop easier. But here's the truth. These aren't casual questions. They're information-gathering tools. Every answer you give helps the officer build a picture of the stop. Your tone, your confidence, your hesitation, your words. All of it is being evaluated and recorded. When you answer questions without thinking, you unknowingly move the stop forward. You may admit to a violation. You may reveal nervousness. You may create suspicion where none existed. And once that happens, the stop subtly shifts from routine to investigative. This is where escalation begins, not with yelling, with talking. The smart move here isn't to be rude or silent from the start. It's to stay neutral. You provide what the law requires, but you don't volunteer information. A simple, calm response like, "I'm not sure, officer," keeps the stop from advancing unnecessarily. It doesn't challenge authority. It doesn't escalate tension. It simply keeps you from escalating yourself. Traffic stops aren't conversations between equals. They're legal encounters. And every word matters more than people realize. Number 2. Escalation happens when movement isn't explained. The second escalation trigger has nothing to do with what you say, it's what you do. Movements during traffic stops are one of the fastest ways situations escalate. Reaching into a pocket, adjusting your seat, grabbing paperwork quickly, turning your body. Even harmless movements can be misinterpreted when an officer doesn't know your intention. Most drivers don't announce what they're doing, they just act. And from the officer's perspective, unexplained movement creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates caution, and caution often leads to escalation. This is why you hear officers say things like, "Keep your hands where I can see them." It's not personal, it's procedural. But when your actions aren't clearly communicated, the officer gains justification to tighten control of the stop. The fix is simple, and it's incredibly effective. You narrate your actions, calmly, clearly. My registration is in the glove box. I'm going to reach for my wallet. My phone is on the seat. By explaining your movement before you make it, you remove ambiguity. And when ambiguity disappears, escalation often stops. Most people think escalation comes from defiance. In reality, it often comes from silence combined with movement. Number 3. Escalation accelerates when you step out of the vehicle. One of the biggest turning points in any traffic stop is the moment you exit the vehicle. And most drivers don't realize how much changes in that instant. Inside your car, you're in a controlled space. Your movements are limited. Your environment is fixed. The officer's access to you is more restricted. But once you step out, everything shifts. Now you're in a public space. The officer can reposition you, separate you from passengers, observe your body language more closely, create distance, control where you stand and how you move. Many drivers step out automatically, without asking whether it's a request or an order. And when you step out voluntarily, escalation becomes easier because you've expanded the scope of the stop. This doesn't mean stepping out is always wrong. It means stepping out without clarity is risky. The smartest move is to pause and confirm. Officer, are you asking me to step out or ordering me to? That one sentence creates clarity, and clarity slows escalation. If it's an order, the law applies differently. If it's a request, you retain choice. Knowing which one it is protects you from unintentionally escalating the encounter. Once you're out of the car, you can't undo that moment. That's why understanding it matters. Number 4. Escalation grows when silence turns into nervous talking. When people get nervous, they talk more. They explain. They justify. They fill silence because silence feels uncomfortable. But during a traffic stop, nervous talking is fuel for escalation. Officers are trained to listen for inconsistencies. Over-explaining creates them. You might contradict yourself. You might say something that sounds suspicious, even if it isn't. You might accidentally admit to something irrelevant that still raises concern. This is how routine stops turn into prolonged ones. The more information you give, the more the officer has to follow up on. Each follow-up extends the stop. Each extension increases the chance of escalation. Silence isn't hostility. Silence is control. You're allowed to be polite and brief. You're allowed to decline answering questions. A simple line like, "I'd prefer not to answer any questions," is lawful, respectful, and effective. People worry that silence makes them look guilty, but legally, silence protects you. Courts don't punish people for exercising their rights. They punish people for their own words. Talking feels helpful. In reality, it often makes things worse. Number 5. Escalation spikes when consent is given without thought. One of the fastest ways a traffic stop escalates is through consent, specifically consent to search. When an officer asks, "You don't mind if I take a look, do you?" it sounds polite, optional, even friendly. Many people say yes because they don't want to seem suspicious. But the moment you consent, the stop changes completely. Consent removes one of your strongest protections. Once given, the officer no longer needs probable cause or a warrant to search areas you allowed, and anything found becomes usable evidence. People often assume officers ask because they already have proof. That's usually not the case. If they had clear legal grounds, they wouldn't ask. They'd act. Asking is a test, and saying yes escalates the stop from a traffic matter to an investigation. The smart response is calm and clear. "I don't consent to any searches, officer." That line isn't rude, it's responsible. It preserves your rights without escalating tension. Saying no doesn't stop an officer from searching if they have legal cause. It simply protects you if they don't.
Number 6. Escalation locks in when detention is declared. There's a moment in every traffic stop when the rules change sharply, and most drivers miss it. That moment is when the officer clearly states that you are being detained. Detention means the officer believes they have legal grounds to control the situation further. At that point, certain commands become enforceable, and refusing them can lead to arrest, even if you've done nothing else wrong. This is not the moment to argue. It's the moment to document. The correct move is to comply safely while protecting yourself on record. A simple statement like, "For the record, I am complying to avoid obstruction," shows that you're following orders without voluntarily surrendering your rights. Escalation at this stage isn't emotional, it's legal, and understanding that difference keeps you out of unnecessary trouble. People get arrested not because they were wrong, but because they resisted after the law required compliance. Knowing when to stop pushing is just as important as knowing when to assert your rights.
Number 7. Escalation is completed when drivers don't realize the stop has shifted. By the time many drivers realize a traffic stop has escalated, it already has. The tone changes, backup arrives, questions increase, commands replace requests, and suddenly what started as a broken taillight feels like something much bigger. This isn't accidental, it's procedural. Traffic stops escalate through small, unnoticed steps. Talking too much, moving without explanation, stepping out without clarity, consenting without thought, resisting at the wrong moment. None of these actions are criminal on their own, but together they create momentum. And once momentum builds, it's hard to stop. The goal isn't to challenge officers, it's to avoid feeding the process. Smart drivers don't escalate stops emotionally or legally. They stay calm, they stay aware, they understand when to speak, when to pause, and when to comply. So, the final thought. Traffic stops don't escalate because of one big mistake. They escalate because of many small ones that feel harmless in the moment. Your words, your movements, your decisions, all of them matter. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to be afraid. You just need to be informed. Stay calm, stay respectful. Don't volunteer information. Don't rush decisions. And always remember this. A traffic stop is not the place to explain yourself. It's the place to protect yourself. Let the roadside stay boring. Let the law handle the rest.